Ah, la 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 la, la 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 la. Let's get it all going first. Let's get it all going. Just waiting a couple more minutes here. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome everybody and nobody. Buenos dias a todos. Crazy times. Crazy times. Super bright lighting we have here. Not much I can do to change that. So seems to be very washed out. I think that's the way it's been though. Oh, I haven't used this phone. I have another phone in my hand. I'm looking at the Dow Jones. The last time I used the phone, the Dow Jones was at 25,000. Today it's at 20,704. It closed today. 20,704. If you remember, I started this these postings, these conversations with myself when the Dow Jones was at almost 30,000, 29,000 and some odd dollars, and now we are all the way down. I think we've been down to 18 something, which is crazy. Crazy times. Let's see, where did we go? We've been at today 20,000, 21. So anyway, we were all the way up to 29,200 and some odd points. Actually, maybe higher than that. 29,348. And now we're at, like I said, today we're at 21,000. So the lowest today was 19,600, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, the 52-week low was 18,219. I would not have expected to be at 20,000 today. I'm not actually even sure how that's possible. Not because I want it to be that way, but if you've been paying attention to the task force, I forget what it's called. We'll call it the virus task force. The health panel plus the president plus the vice president plus a myriad of other uh, types that show up from time to time to kind of, I don't know, make people feel like they're represented. Um, as far as I can remember, I haven't watched every single post from the task force, but I don't think they've had any Asians represented yet. Or, I mean, I suppose some of those people in the back could be Latinos, but there definitely have been the black representation and um, the intellectual representation. Everybody looks like they're at their wits' end, and they're doing their best to mask their worry and concern, especially the doctors. Fauci looks like he's holding it together pretty well, but he suffers no fools, and it's a hard one for him because he has to be political while delivering what he is considering to be the right information. So we're all quarantined. Apparently they locked down Texas today. We've been locked down for, I think, here in Los Angeles, I think for a week. I personally, along with my family, have been locked down for longer than that because, as I have stated before in previous posts, I expected this to happen. Not quite this fast, but once I saw the momentum building, we decided to shut down our business and go to the house and stay inside and not really be around large crowds. I have to say I have been to the grocery store a few times, though I didn't want to, but we got the majority of our shopping done prior to the mad rush for stockpiling of toilet paper, which I still don't get. I mean, well, I get it. This is a country of comfort and luxury. Even the people that are complaining live in, you know, as they say, even the poorest people now live in better conditions than kings did of old. So nobody wants to be without their toilet paper in the comfort of their homes, sitting on the porcelain throne. So I confess I did buy some toilet paper. Um, I have enough, I think. I did not want to stockpile, but I was outvoted. So certainly was in a market picking up the last bundle directly from the guy that was, in fact, the guy was stocking the toilet paper from his cart to the shelf. And as he was picking up the bundle to put on the shelf, I was the person in between the shelf and and his cart, and he just handed it to me. So got toilet paper. We've got rice for days, like giant pounds of rice. One thing I noticed is if you go into Asian markets and even let's say Middle Eastern markets, or well, Asian and Middle Eastern markets. So I'm not the same market, but if you go into an Asian market and or you go into a Middle Eastern market, they have giant bags of rice. And and some people, and in fact I used to work with a girl, I can't remember exactly where she's from, but she was Asian, and she told me she ate rice every day, which is um I don't eat rice every day, and I didn't eat rice every day. So I suppose that if you eat rice every day, then you need a 25-pound bag of rice. And there are varying qualities of rice, and obviously they taste different. And when you are quarantined, you start to pay attention to the different types of rice. Whereas before, although I mean, I don't get me wrong, I had an idea that there were different types of rice, and and an understanding that they taste different. But you start to have a greater kind of palate for rice and its tastes. So that is one of the features of being quarantined, is you're eating things that you didn't normally eat before. I've eaten so much bread in the last week, which I'm not supposed to do. If you listen to any of the people talking about how to build your immune system and how to keep your resistance to viruses, they tell you to stay away from sugar and stay away from carbohydrates, and to sort of keep yourself uh, in keto or ketosis. So eating bread definitely will take you out of ketosis. In fact, I have bit of a, not a this is not the virus, but I do have a stuffy nose from the types of food I've been eating. That's something that happens to me, especially if I eat wheat. I will definitely get somewhat of a stuffy nose because it's no good for you, but it tastes amazing. So I said I was going to do a timeline, and I've been so bombarded with other information that I have I didn't write it down, and I don't really have a timeline anymore, so it doesn't really matter. But I'll give you a a brief timeline of what has taken place, and what whether or not you consider competent action from the powers that be. So there are some people that are saying that this issue started in China in around November. And so the president is saying China could have let us know. I agree. They could have let us know in November. And but if I'm not if I'm incorrect, so either either we have a defense department and a surveillance department, or um, surveillance as part of the other forms of defense that we have for the country. We have spies, we have hackers, we have satellites, we listen in on conversations, we monitor actions and behaviors of certain types of people in various countries, especially countries that we do significant amounts of business with, and also countries that are threatening to us. I could be wrong about that. So what I'm saying is that either we have it or we don't have it. Now, we're being led to believe that we have this extremely sophisticated military and extremely sophisticated government that is protecting the people. And so, if this virus, the outbreak of this virus started in November in a city that is renowned for doing uh, biochemical weaponry or testing, um, it seems like we would have at least one spy in that area and maybe a couple satellites pointed over that city, the city of Wuhan, to determine whether or not things are getting out of hand. Now, there was one article that said that during the Obama administration, they found out that China had created a coronavirus that had, I forget the term again, but it's something gain, which essentially means that the virus actually operates or behaves in a different or stronger way than a normal virus would. And it has the potential to be stronger in certain areas than a normal coronavirus. So either we have them or we don't have them. So if we don't have surveillance, if we don't have spies, if we don't have people on the ground, if we don't have hackers, if we don't have all of that stuff, then we have a problem because we are being led to believe that we have those things. As taxpayers, are we paying just for weaponry? I thought we were paying for sophisticated systems for acquiring information and using that information to protect ourselves. And so, if we know that there is bioweaponry going on in a country that has threatened us in the past, um, some sirens should have been alerted, maybe not to the public, but at least within the government. And so, let's say we missed it in November. Okay. Let's say again we missed it in November. So then, what about December? Because for my timeline, I actually started seeing these videos that were being snuck through or out of China in December, late December. So I don't remember exactly. I just know that I was home for the holidays and I started to around uh, Christmas, before Christmas, and from before Christmas through New Year's, I started to see little bitty pieces of information of people being sick in China with a some virus. Didn't really think too much of it, but it did catch my attention because I remember seeing those. So then, so my question is, if we have all this sophisticated surveillance and this sophisticated intelligence operations and uh, defense, why didn't either we know about it? So why didn't we know about it? And if So my thing is, and this is a controversial statement, but either we're complicit or we are incompetent. Complicit or incompetent. Because by mid-January, for me, I'm looking at these videos coming out of China and thinking, holy crap, this is crazy. Like, this is happening, and they're talking about it being extremely contagious. I mean, the way the videos, obviously, they were speaking in Chinese and people were translating. Um, they were translating with words. So, like subtitles with words on the screen is what I meant. And the so I don't know if the videos I was watching were true. I don't know if what they were saying was accurate, if the subtitles were accurate. I just assumed that why would somebody take the time to put up a fake video about people dying and catching viruses and it being highly contagious and um, you know, wondering whether or not it's traveling through the pipes and if it's airborne for days and weeks. I mean, everything that we're talking about now they were talking about in January. And so let's say it's real time because now with the internet and social media, um, everything is pretty close to real time. So let's say I started seeing videos in December, and then by January they started to be pretty mid January they started to be pretty frequent, and pretty alarming. And then the uh, by mid January, I started to tell people about it because I could see that it's coming. I have a buddy who owns in fact, we did a podcast a couple weeks ago. He owns a grocery store. And so I've been talking to him about this since beginning of the year and explaining to him that he needed to be ready and aware of what's happening because his market was going to be possibly overrun if things got crazy, but definitely he needed to stock up and prepare because he was going to run out of things, and then things could get hostile. So of course he didn't believe me, and this is multiple conversations with him, and it's anyway. Eventually, luckily for him, he saw the momentum building up, and then I think remembered what we talked about and started to put some things into action. Okay, so let's say that mid-January, the government, let's say they didn't know anything until mid-January. But again, as Americans, we should be asking questions about how come we weren't told about this in December, or how come we didn't take any action? How come the government didn't take action? I don't have a problem with uh, Trump shutting down the borders. In fact, when he did that, I thought it was a great idea because I recognized what was happening. In fact, before he did that, there were videos from China of 5 million people. So again, another video, people talking in Chinese, um, with subtitles, with their freeways filled with cars, and something to the tune of 5 million people who some people said were some of the wealthiest in the city, leaving Wuhan. So all of those people essentially left to go to various places. One place being Shanghai and other places throughout China, and some also went to America. And so excuse me, once I started to see that, I realized this is unstoppable. And again, I don't know why I didn't really consider it to catch on this quickly. I thought it would be a few more months. I thought we had more time. But I was at that point. Once I started seeing that, I realized this is uncontrollable and it's going to hit everywhere. So I started to take some actions, such as uh, buying a little extra food and some other precautions. So if I did that, just a lonely fellow over here in Los Angeles, if I can look at just videos on social media, if I can look at videos on social media and determine that, wow, this is not right and this is scary and this is a problem, then all these extremely intelligent, smart people that are over these organizations in our country, um, what happened? Why didn't we get that info? I want to know what happened. And I appreciate all the things that are going on now, but we need to. I need to know what happened, and everybody should be asking these questions. Now I'm going to say okay. So we got we got January. I think January 29th, the borders were shut down, or people he stopped flights from China, which was great. Um, Remember, while this is happening, not only was this happening in China, but this is around the time that I think her name is Dr. Chu. Dr. Chu was dealing with what she was dealing with in Seattle. And if you don't know about Seattle, you have to go back and look at another post. I wish I knew the name of the post that I did, but I talked about a Dr. Chu in Seattle. In fact, you can look up the article yourself. Dr. Chu was dealing with this in January, dealing with a patient that had come from Wuhan and was exemplifying the symptoms of coronavirus, and she was asking for specific tests, and they weren't allowing her to do it. The CDC was not allowing her to do the tests, which is that's a whole other story, which again makes me wonder about whether or not this was something that they wanted to spread. They didn't care about spreading. I don't know what I don't understand how you could not recognize how bad this was going to be. I just don't get it. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any background in medicine, none. I don't get why there was no action taken sooner. I don't get it. And this is why we're having this problem. And if you remember, I said before, it's going to get a lot worse. Now there's 25,000 cases in New York. When I first started talking about this, they hadn't even reported, I think, any cases in New York. Um, and then when I started to really ramp up conversations about it, I think they had reported 100 cases. Now there's 25,000 cases, and it's doubling every 3 days, which means 3 days from the day that we're talking is going to be 50,000 cases. And then so within a week, we could be at 100,000 cases in New York. And my thing is that they definitely knew that this was coming. And so I don't know if they held off because they wanted to stockpile as much money as they could. I know that some representative in the government, a high up person, I can't find the article anymore, which is another conversation about censoring that's taking place. Um, there is a high official that was on the podium the other day talking that actually had conversations with executives when the president was saying that there was nothing to worry about. And this person was warning executives that this was going to be bad. So, and I can't find that article anymore. And so I'm sure it's out there. It's just I'm not using the appropriate keywords because they can't hide everything, but they can hide it based on, like, let's say general uh search search phrases, or you just have to be able to. Actually, I didn't check Reddit, so maybe I'll check that. But anyway, this is bad. I hope you guys are actually taking it seriously. I'm actually we're quarantined in our home, but we are we have someone who is exposed to someone who's possibly uh, who has some symptoms. So the person in our home doesn't exemplify any symptoms. I'm sure they're fine, but um, anyway, it's something that is important for it's important for you to stay quarantined. It's important. Oh, and then the other thing I mentioned before, the probably the single biggest thing that you can do, um, next to next to social distancing and quarantining and obviously washing your hands and all that stuff, is strengthening your immune system. And this is the biggest eye opener of the whole thing, and that is that nobody is talking about not one mention of vitamins, not one mention of keeping yourself healthy, not one mention of strengthening your immune system and how to do that. Uh, That's crazy. It's really shocking. And I mean, I knew that pharmaceutical companies are really important in this country, and they well connected and control a lot of things. But wow, not one mention of how to stay healthy. So this is kind of just a rambling uh, spewing of information today. Somebody who's been on the up and up, as far as I know, I feel like he's running for president, and that's Governor of New York, Cuomo. Uh, he's I don't know what kind of governor he was prior to this. I don't know how the people of New York feel about him. I know people didn't really like what's his name. Some people loved Giuliani. Some people hated Giuliani. I'm sure it's the same for every single politician. But and I don't know if this guy has always been straightforward. I mean, he sounds like a guy, hey, come over here and let me talk to you a bit. But I don't know if he's that type of person. I don't know if he really cares about the people. But I do feel like he's campaigning for president. So um, because he's a lot more straightforward than people usually normally are in those positions, and it seems like he's getting a lot of fans. But he's one of the people that's telling the truth. And if you want to see where this is going, and if you want to know how bad it is, just pay attention. Just look at the timeline of New York, and you can think of it as like a tidal wave. And tidal wave is now hitting New York, and it's coming across the country. And that's, maybe it's two tidal waves, because I'm sure the only difference between LA and New York, I mean, there's a big difference. One of the reasons why New York is having such difficulty is because they have subways, and large percentage of the population uses subways. A large percentage of the population uses some form of public transit and or taxis. And so people are in and out of these things all the time, touching things, bumping up against each other, talking to each other. Whereas in LA, I mean, you may not even, unless you outside of your work in your home, you don't really interact with people on a regular basis. Whereas you're interacting with strangers every day in New York. And so that's part of the reason why they're having this issue. So it may not be as bad here as it is there, because our public transit system is not used as much. LA is very spread out, and people use their cars a lot. So I'd be interested to see what the impact is going to be here versus there. I hope what I mean by that is I hope it's not as bad. But there are millions of people here, and this thing is supposed to be super contagious. So if people can catch the flu, and this is supposed to be, now they're saying 3 times more contagious than the flu. I've heard it's way more than that. Don't know who to believe anymore, but all you can do is try to fortify your immune system with vitamins, and try to get a lot of rest. That's what I've been doing. Been trying to be as healthy as possible, except for the bread part. But and just trying to limit the being stressed out about it. I'm not a person that stresses out too much anyway, but I mean, this is for some people, and maybe possibly for many everybody, it's life or death situation. So I'm trying to protect my family and obviously protect myself. And I texted a friend today, and he's like, "How come you didn't tell me about it?" And I warn people about things all the time, and most of the time, people are they don't listen to you. So the only time they're going to listen to you, I don't know. I guess if you're living in a castle or something, maybe they'll listen to you. But so I told some people, I told people that I knew would mostly I knew would at least take some action. Some people I told early on. Um, I just told for their own personal benefit, even whether or not they listen or not. But once it really started to take get some power behind it, I just tucked in and started preparing myself. Um, that's it. That's all I got today. So strengthen your immune system. Work on yourself. I had a quarantine quarrel already with a neighbor I've never interacted with. I'll talk about that next time. So I'm sure everybody will be fighting with somebody. It wasn't a really bad fight, but anyway, talk to you guys soon. Bye.